Thank you, Unity Singers. That was beautiful. Good morning again. I am Reverend Maggie Alderman, and it is my pleasure today to be speaking with you about between now and not yet. Oh, where did I come up with this title? Well, I have a jar that says Sensational Sermons that sits on my bookshelf in my office. It was gifted to me by my dad when I was first starting seminary school. And since I was given that, I've been just dropping random musings and inspiration and wrappers from a Dove chocolate piece into that jar to get me going. And this week I pulled out a slip of paper that says, "We are living between two worlds right now." So today we're going to be moving through the process of identifying what transition feels like and how to use the in-between time in a productive way. Recognizing that we experience transitions over and over through our lives doesn't mean that we are necessarily experts. Doesn't mean that we are super great or have always moved through it with the highest ease and grace. So when I think about transitions, I think about the three levels that are involved for me, and that is mind, body, and spirit. And then we'll look at how to accept the blessing as we wrap up the completeness of one part of our life and embrace the newness and the preparation for what's next. Well, we're always in transition. And I want to just take a minute to clarify the difference between change and transition. Change is an external impact to our regular life. Change is when the grocery store is out of your favorite brand of coffee. Change is when you take the same way home from work or the store or your friend's parents' house, and all of a sudden there's been a diversion, a detour. That's a change. Transition is something that starts and brews from within our being and is a product of us evolving, reassessing what once served us, what we once believed, what once we liked, and determine if those are still beliefs and likes and habits that are serving the highest good for where we are headed. So I chose the title Between Now and Not Yet because it aligns perfectly with the harvest season. You know, we are in Central Texas here, and our bounty is reflective of all of the hard work that has been put into the fields in our area. We've got winter squash, pomegranates, pumpkins in every shape, size, color you can imagine. So those fields look a lot like this picture right now. The hay has been rolled up and baled, and there's the time of in between. How do we cultivate? What do we do with that period to prepare for what is to be planted next? A lot like all of you, I received my letter from God this last week. It was probably delivered the week before. I'm not so great at checking my mail. The letters from God is a tradition that we practice here at Unity of New Braunfels at the beginning of the year. And I was amazed by a few things when I read my letter. First, I was amazed at how wise my higher self seems to be and how important it is and adds value to my perspective current day when I stop and listen. I'm also amazed at how many points of transition, not change, transition that I have moved through since January 5th, before COVID, the new BC, to now. I knew then what I was called to do. I knew then who I said I would be on this planet. But what I didn't know was how I was going to get there. I didn't know the path, the long and winding road between now and then, the time in between. And it gives me anxiety. I was talking to Leslie before service, and I'm going to tell on myself. When I get out ahead of myself, when I am thinking that I'm outthinking God and I am not willingly in the process or in the pocket of change and transition, I get sweaty feet. It's something that I noticed just in the last few weeks. I'm human. You're welcome for the laugh. Sweaty feet. And it was in my letter. I said, I have sweaty feet at the sheer anticipation of where and how I will be called to serve next. Do you have sweaty feet about where you are? Are you feeling nervous? I know that you're definitely feeling the place that we are in transition. I have delicately chosen to stay within the theme of nature, the cycle of life, when we till, we harvest our crops, till the earth, and prepare for the next new thing. But we are in transition when we watch the landscape of the political scene. We're in transition when we wait and see what's going to unfold for COVID-19 and how it's going to be impacting us next. Those are large-scale transitions. Today, I would like to invite you to focus on what's happening right here and right now in your own individual universe. There are 3 phases of transition. The first is the ending, which is a little counterintuitive. To start something new, you have to end what was before. And then there's the space of neutrality. This is the beautiful place of cultivation, enrichment, integration, and imagination. And then we move into the new beginning. So, in the midst of a harvest, there is a time to pause, prepare, and then plant. So why is this such an important focus? If we are constantly evolving, we know the trees bloom in the spring and give us shade in the summer and turn yellow in fall in the cooler months, and then they're barren in the winter. We know this cycle, and we know we are all one and we're part of that cycle. So why is it that we must, as spiritual beings having a human journey, focus on these places of transition? James Allen is a unity minister, and he said, men attract not that which they want, but that which they are. I don't know, but I'm not always, the quickest to let go of what's become familiar in my life. And a lot of what is familiar isn't just my routine. It's my thought pattern. It's my inner circle of friends and people that I relate to and the subject matters that are of curiosity to me. So as to not be tempted to drag an old version of ourselves, what we once were, into a new beginning, we need to focus on the transition that is in progress and utilize the time in between wisely. So the best that I can assess is I have 6 different activities that happen in transition. So stay with me. First, it starts with renewal. Remember what I said about the beginning also being the end of what was once a new beginning. In the time of renewal, we have the opportunity to just rest. There's 3 parts to this: mind, body, and spirit. Rest our mind and lay down what once was, the identity of who we once were. Give ourselves the physical rest. Oftentimes when we have been actively seeking a goal or going after an achievement, it takes a lot of disruption and requires physical activity on our part. And when the time comes and there's no longer anything else to do, the invitation is to allow yourself to slow down. And then spiritual renewal looks like finding ways to pour into your cup what you've been dishing out to everyone and everywhere for everything that you've been going through on your journey up until this point. We need to replenish ourselves. Sometimes for me, that just looks like a day of watching Netflix and not having to think and not having to move, but I'm purely entertained and I'm unplugged and I'm renewed upon that rest. The next stage is reflection. This is where we develop a sense of appreciation for who we are becoming. When we reflect back, we can give ourselves a little credit for all of the things that we've accomplished, the lessons we've learned, our true partnership with the co-creator that is God, and recognize that we actively participated in creating that fantastic phase of our lives. Or the not so fantastic phase of our lives. Because it's often discomfort, the not that moves us forward through the process of transition. Third is stillness. And maybe third, being stillness, incorporates the renewal and the reflection. Because when I've gotten calm and centered, I am now opening my mind and opening my heart to allow the stirrings of what might be next to occur. When I'm so busy and I'm so focused and I'm so on point and on task, I am large and in charge and I am Maggie and I'm going. And I'm not always open to listening to that still small voice within me. Part of transition is that we don't come here to stay, we come here to move. And we need to listen and be willing to hear what's coming up in the periphery, what might be next. Number 4 is growth. This is my favorite part. This is where I love to observe me and what I've done. It's the stage of integration. It's the stage where you realize that the lessons that you have learned, the skills you have acquired, the strengths that you have taken on through your journey up into this point are actively integrated. And they're showing up in conversation, in decisions, in visions for what you want to be, aspire to have or go or think of next. And they come through seamlessly. So we have to recognize where we've grown from what we once thought we were, the thoughts and beliefs we held, into the next version, the next elevated consciousness that we're stepping into. And then strength is number 5, strength. Strength is where we start to build the infrastructure of our source, of our soul, of our being, to hold what's next. Because we've been quiet, we're getting a clue, we know we're ready, and now we're going to be strong enough to move through the process. And finally, it's anticipation. It's allowing ourselves to set aside the old superstition of, I'm not going to say this out loud. I don't want to jinx it. It's claiming it. It is declaring it. It is saying, I am that, I am ready, I know where I'm going, and I am willing, God, take me on the ride. And we know we're strong, and we know we're brave, and we know that we can do it. When we are in the phase of anticipation, we have fully released and healed and loved and been in gratitude for what was, and we focus all of that new energy into creating the new. Francis M. Drake says, "That which you are today is the fulfillment of yesterday's aspirations. That which you are tomorrow will be the achievement of today's vision." The invitation from this quote is to stay where you are in your thoughts. If you have to have a transition story, do that to remind yourself that you're no longer that, you're here. You're here and you have clear vision on where you're going. I liken this phase, this quote, to tuning into a radio frequency. Before live streaming and Spotify and Pandora, everybody was listening to books on tapes and whatnot. We actually took road trips just listening to the radio. And of course, you get outside of your own, immediate residential area, and the first thing I did was hit scan. And hearing bits and pieces of a commercial that I understood the language, or a song that I sure wish would come in clear. There's stuff in there that I wanted to grab onto while scanning the frequencies. And there was stuff that I definitely didn't want to hear. So this is a phase of scanning the frequency of truth. What is in alignment with your energetic, intentional vibration right now? Not yesterday, today. What song do you want to hear? What truth is resonating with you? And what is screaming, not that, not anymore? I have a personal angst with this process. I am not always super eager to jump into transition. In fact, I think I have a spidey sense that might be a product of some PTSD from having gone through it in the most disgraceful way, bumping my head, skinning my knees, just kicking and screaming and clawing my way through. It's going to happen. The choice is ours as to whether or not we want to surrender to the process and go into it intentionally, awake, if you will. I have to maintain my subconscious mind in this process. I know the feelings. It's like trembles in the earth. I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a big one. And it builds, and it builds, and it builds. And I start the process of, this isn't serving me anymore. This is not for me anymore. That's not working anymore. It could be a job. It could be a house. It could be a relationship. It could be your financial status. It could be your neighbor, your children, name it. When I feel the connectedness in my grounded self to the earth, I know the whisper of transformation is upon me. And I cannot allow for sweaty feet. I can't get out ahead of my skis in the spirit of anxiety and not allowing for God's process to just be God's process and knowing that I'm called to be in it too. My subconscious mind wants to tell me that which I was is still creeping around on the edge. Those things that I released that were not serving me may just eke into the periphery of my existence one more time. In other words, it's telling me that the other shoe is getting ready to drop. So my work is to override my mind. Unity principle number 3 says that our thoughts create our reality. So in transition, I have the opportunity to be happy, acceptant, peaceful of what is, and aware and alert to put my creative energy into what I can control, what I do want to see manifest into the world. I'll tell you a story about when I first moved back from Virginia to Texas. I went through this process. I actively created the life that I had in Virginia for 15 years. I was married. I had 3 children. I started my career. I played roller derby. We moved up and down the coast to chase career opportunities. And the best friends I've ever had in my life started to slip through my fingers in transition. They're still the best friends of my life, but I knew that I was in the process of releasing what had served me very well up until that point. And all I had to do was recognize that it was time to move. So very clearly, I just said one day in a text to my then husband, I said, I'm moving to Texas. Want to come? Didn't have a house, didn't have a job, didn't know the how or the why, and didn't need to. But after just a beat of considering true possibility, I went into my boss's office and became not just the 3rd person to start working from home full time. I was a teleworker before teleworking was cool. I didn't have to worry about all of the details because I had scanned the frequency and I came right in to alignment with truth. My time here in Virginia is done. I love and bless my friends, and I'm done here. And this is where I'm going. I don't know why, but I'm going. And God said, all right, thank you, Maggie. Just waited for you to get the picture, sister. And everything unfolded. I was in my boss's office on October 15th and pulled into a house that I rented sight unseen on December 22nd with now ex-husband, 3 children, a Great Dane, and 2 cats 3 days before Christmas. When you're operating inside the frequency of truth and you've done the work to move through these steps, it just falls like this. So where are you in your transition? Not impacted by changes. How are you dealing with changes? What are you feeling amongst these changes? Are you still releasing and having a hard time in the stage of grief or guilt of not wanting to let go of what once served you? Or are you afraid to dream? Dreaming is a part of the process. It's quite delicious when we have faith and trust in God. Or are you doing what I tend to have difficult doing, and that is getting out of the way and letting God do God's great work for, as, and through you. I want to end today with a little excerpt that is in this book. It's a daily devotional that aligns with unity language, and it's by Will Bowen. It's called To You, Love God. Yesterday's writing says this. October 17th, to you. You decided on something you wish to eat. You decided to go to the store and purchase ingredients. Arriving home, you wash and prepare everything. Next, you'll mix it all together in the right portions and heat it on the stove. Is the meal ready to be served? Not yet. It has to simmer a while. It's during this time when you can smell but not taste what you've created that you build up a strong appetite for what's cooking. This hunger guarantees that when all the ingredients have stewed together, your first taste will be astounding. So relax. You've done your part. Now I'll do mine. Things are cooking along nicely. Smells good, doesn't it? Love God.
Step out on step is stronger. Step out on the water.